What is up, everybody? I am your host, Rob Younce, and thank you for tuning back into the Canecast Show. If today's your first episode, man, are you in for a treat. If you've been with us before, we really appreciate you coming back. Either way, today's guest is sure to get after it, as he always does. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you a favor. Help us grow the show by one of 5 ways. First of all, smash the like button. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast host, smash that like button for us. 2, drop us a comment. Let us know what you like about the show or don't like. 3, help us grow our community by subscribing. That lets others know that the show is legit. 4, show us some love with a review. Or 5, share the show. Send this to your friends and enemies who are missing baseball right now. We could all use a fix, right? In today's episode, we bring you a high-energy big leader with a Canes history. Jake Cave with the Minnesota Twins. Jake plays the game hard and shares some great stories. As he takes us through his baseball journey, please take note of how Jake's career might be able to help a player you know. We are proud he's a Canes alum, and we can't wait to see Jake back on the field, robbing home runs in the outfield or just flat out hitting jacks. And now, it's time to dig in and take our hacks. Here's Jake.
Hey guys, what's up? Rob Younce here again with an episode of Canecast. We got an awesome lineup today, as you can expect with when we pulled Jeff Petty on, and we got one of the original Canes. I think he was, at least he was when I came on board. Jake Cave. He's a top prospect, top player for the Minnesota Twins, and excited to have him. He's a former Cane. So Jake, welcome, man. Tell us a little bit about you, kind of your baseball journey, and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks, because this is huge for me. I love podcasts. I watch them every single day. Joe Rogan's like a hero of mine right now. So this is technically like my first like legit podcast like I've done, where like
That's
somebody's
awesome.
telling me we're recording and we're going.
First of all, I don't know how legit this really is.
Yeah,
Right.
valid. Well, if it's recording and it's saved and I'm on it, then eventually in the future, if I'm big in a podcast, which I want to be, like this will be my first one right here.
Very cool.
This is your starting
Awesome.
point.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
But,
tell us
yeah,
a little bit
no.
about you, Jake.
So I am so I played for the Canes growing up. I'm from Hampton, Virginia. And then I got drafted in 2011 to the Yankees. I'm now with the Twins. But so there's a lot of stuff. I spent a lot of years with the Canes. I spent a lot of years in the minor leagues. I've been having some success lately in the big leagues. I'm currently in this holding pattern right now to figure out what's going on with the world with all this. But so really, what do you want to know? I got a lot.
So let's kick it back to the beginning, man. Back when you were a kid. I know your dad's a very, very well-respected coach, Hall of Fame type coach. Isn't he in Hall of Fame somewhere? He should be.
If he's in a couple, they have him for like the area, that kind of thing. I don't know if he's in Virginia, but yeah, my dad, he's had a really good career at the Newport News Apprentice School, which is they play D3 baseball, but they're the players on my dad's team are actually they're working at the shipyard, and they go to some classes and they work, and then they come out and they play for my dad. But yeah, he's had a really good career there. He's had some really good players. He's had some really good teams. He's still there. He's retired from the shipyard now. And he is currently still coaching at the apprentice school. Well, their season got canceled.
How many years has he been coaching there? Like 30 plus?
It's gotta be like 45, man. Or it was
wow.
40 some years in the shipyard, but he played at the apprentice school when he was in the shipyard for 3-4 years. And then once he graduated school, he continued to work in the shipyard. He was a coach immediately. So, I mean,
Wow.
since he was 21, 22,
Wow.
it's been over 40
Wow.
years, over 40 years coaching. Yeah.
Wow, that's
That's
awesome.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you grew up, I'm in the 757. You grew up in the 757. How was baseball here when you were growing up?
And it was fun. It was competitive. It was really, really competitive. Just in my district alone, I graduated Kickintan High School in Hampton. My district alone, the Peninsula District, I want to say we had 5 Division I pitchers, which is that's not real common for a lot of
Not
high
common at
school
all.
districts. So it was cool because I knew that I was playing good teams in high school. And then in high school when I was playing for the Canes in the summer, I mean, that was ridiculous. I mean, every weekend I was playing against guys that I had heard of before. We'd go to the big tournaments in Jupiter and Fort Myers and stuff like that. And we're playing against guys like, Lindor, Javi Baez, uh, man, Jason Fernandez on the bump, rest in
Right.
peace, like crazy talent. It was something that I don't know how it is these days. I guess I haven't kept track as much with the amateur circuit and stuff like that, but I can't see it being much better than when I played and me and my buddies played. I don't know, Jeff obviously will be able to answer that better if it was as competitive now or more competitive now. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was pretty
Jeff,
competitive.
So Jake, you came to the Canes when you were what, a sophomore in high school?
Yeah. I remember I started playing. I had to have been.
You were in the 9th grade, actually.
Ninth grade?
Yeah, because I was
Yeah,
playing. I was
playing
playing with Chad Pinder and those guys because
You played up.
Yeah. Until
So-
I reached my age group and then
Yeah.
kept playing with them.
So Jeff, what was your first impression of a young Jake Cave?
Well, first time I ever met Jake, he probably doesn't remember this, but I think he was in the 8th grade, and we were at the old Memorial Stadium at JMU. And I wasn't coaching the team that he was on. He was on a Canes team, and I had heard about Jake, actually through his dad, because I would attend the baseball bash, which used to be the big convention in Virginia, back in those days. And I got to know his dad really well. So I actually had a relationship with his father way before I even put 2 and 2 together that there was this left-handed pitcher, outfielder, left-handed hitter coming through that it happened to be Brian's son. But I saw Brian in the stands, and I put 2 and 2 together that, that Jake was there. I think he was in the 8th grade playing up on a 9th or 10th grade team at Memorial Stadium that day. But he was into the game. I mean, I think he hit a double that day off of a junior arm, I believe. Hustled, always ran out to his position. Never right out of the gate, you knew, wow, this kid takes his business serious. Even just coming on and off the field, you don't always see that. You know that, Rob. I mean, especially at the amateur level, a guy that runs on and off of the field like that, and then just rolls over a ground ball and it's just 110% down the line. That was my first impression that day.
Yeah, and you know what? And I know Jake from back when he was 8, 9 years old. I coached a team, and we tried to play up, and I think Jake and his guys are pretty good. But that's the one thing I remember about Jake was even back then, he was getting on and off the field the right way. I mean, that was one of the things that really, really impressed me about him was how he went about his business. And Jake, I'm assuming that probably came from your dad, if I'm to guess. Is that correct?
I mean, I think it's a little of both. I got the for sure my dad, I mean, being a baseball guy, especially like an old school baseball guy, he that was something, you do things a certain way, you do this a certain way, you wear your uniform a certain way, you run a certain way. But then there was also if I didn't do that, there were times where I was young, man, the Twins fans, I've said it a couple of times at like Twins Fest, and they love it. It was when my mom came over and got me in the dugout one time when I was real young, and told me she was going to take my butt out of the game if I didn't hustle, and I don't really remember not hustling really ever again.
That's
after
awesome.
that. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
your
they
mom's
always ask,
your mom's no pushover.
Yeah, no. She would have had me off that field for sure.
Yeah, that's good. So you joined the Canes. Tell me some of the things you learned through that. I mean, you obviously played for Jeff. He's had a great influence on a lot of guys. Tell me some of the things you picked up there, and how did that prepare you for the next step?
Yeah, I think it was everything. The experience that I had with the Canes when I was playing were something that just prepared me for pro ball, prepared me for life. I would travel to these different areas, on different weekends. If my parents couldn't take me for some reason, I would go with Jeff, or I would go with another family. And I'm staying in hotels. It's a pretty hectic lifestyle for a high school kid, and that was stuff that I got to do with the Canes. And then on top of that, when I was rolling into these cities, is kind of like minor league baseball to it, abbreviated. But I'd roll into cities and we'd play a couple games in a day against some of these crazy names, or you're in North Carolina playing a weekend tournament and you're facing a pitcher who's throwing 95 for some reason, like out of nowhere.
Right.
I don't think I would have ever have gotten that confidence in the consistent reps against good players, and the consistent traveling, and the consistent learning how to be a teammate and live with other guys and stuff like that. If it wasn't for the Canes, and that directly correlates to what happens when you become a professional ball player. So I felt like I was already a little bit ready for that. So I owe a lot of just baseball, not ability, but just going about certain things to the Canes.
Yeah, you mentioned some guys earlier like Chad and guys like that, guys you played with who, obviously you get to see on much nicer fields now and in front of bigger crowds and things like that. But you guys, whether you realize it or not, laid the foundation. And Jeff, I know we've talked about that. We talk to our younger kids about that all the time, about, guys like Jake and Chad and Broom and all those guys, how they have really, created that foundation for all the Canes. You've seen a lot of this, Jeff. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in 2009 it was July 3rd or 4th, we're playing in a 17-year-old game. Jake's playing up. And I don't think we really know what's about to happen the next 10 years. You got Tony Walters behind the plate. You got Christian Yelich in right field. And, you got Jake Cave and Chad Pender and all these guys. Dylan Maples pitched that night. He's in the big leagues. So, and Dylan was playing up as well. I don't think even then, at the time, I knew what the next, 11 years would be. But definitely to say that they laid the groundwork, they certainly did. And they were a huge part of what the Canes are now. And that was the beginning, right? I mean, Jake talked about what's it like now. It's the same now, if not probably a little better, to where back then, Jake was playing with guys strictly from Virginia, right? North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe. Where now our national team, I mean, you got 5 guys from Los Angeles. Look, now the landscape is Christian Yelich would be Jake's teammate.
Right.
So, but, Jake definitely led that surge of guys and that experience. And it's been a crazy ride. And to his point, I mean, I think, ability wise, you get these players in a room and the ability's already there. I mean, they're coming from wherever they're coming from. And your job, really our job, is to try to get them to play together. And to Jake's point, I mean, that's kind of what pro ball is in a way. All these guys coming from these different spots, and then now all of a sudden they're teammates. And, and sometimes, a lot of time, they're trying to take each other's jobs, right?
Right.
And then with us too, you see a lot of that inner competition where it's like they're teammates, but it's like, man, I want to play over you, because it might help my draft stock or what have you. But it means the world what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that being around it for so long, hearing, you hear the good and the bad, and everything I hear about Jake and have heard from the beginning is how a great competitor he is. How a good natural leader he's been. Jake, how's that carried over into pro ball? I mean, especially coming into the Twins and you're one of the younger guys there, how are you able to lead? I mean, how does that happen?
Man, it's funny. It's funny how crazy, the sport is too when it comes to stuff like that, because I can remember being told that my attitude was bad. Not all the time. Obviously, everybody loved, the hustle, the everything like that. But when I was young in the minor leagues, I mean, I was so over the top when I was getting out and I was breaking stuff in the dugout, and I was almost getting injured because I was getting mad or because I was doing things too hard. It was always one of those things that it was told to me my dad, when he saw it young, you know, he always said he would rather try to reel it back than try to get that fire started. And that was something I always had. I was high, you know, I'm a high strung person. I'm always moving. I'm always whatever. But like, you know, I like to play the game a certain way. I like to play the game hard. And sometimes, you know, I'd have a tough time dealing with failure. And, you know, and I wasn't always considered a leader, but I played the game the right way when I was young for the New York Yankees. I started getting a little older and I started going into my second or third year in a AAA. And I started, you know, figuring out a little bit about, you know, the right way to do things, or the way to go about things, or the way to say things, or the way to act when you get out. Then, you know, I get to the big leagues and I'm the young guy on a big league, not the youngest, obviously, but a young guy on a big league team. And I'm seeing how Joe Mauer's acting. You know, and I'm like, okay, like I really see how pro guys act. And then I get sent down to AAA. And then it's like, okay, now I'm a little bit of an older guy on the team with a bunch of good, talented young guys. And now I'm not the one who's getting crazy mad when I'm getting out. I'm the one who's talking to these younger guys like, hey, man, like, it's all right. Like, you look good right there. Like, you know, whatever. So the game comes full circle. I was that young guy that was a hothead because of the way I played. And now I've almost turned into the, you know, this past year I spent, you know, a couple times getting sent back to AAA. And each time I would, you know, I would almost like, it would feel good to have these opportunities where I could talk to a kid. And even though being 27, it wasn't like 26 at the time. It wasn't like I was this old guy, but I had been in pro ball for 8 years, you know, and some of these guys were in AAA in their third year. And it's like, you know, there's a lot that they're going to learn. And so I don't want to say that like I'm, you know, if people want to say I'm a leader, I'm honored they would say that, but I just want to play the game a certain way. And then if I ever get into situations where I could be a leader, then I hope I take that opportunity.
So, you know, let's dig into that a little bit. I mean, I know you're a high energy guy. I know you're really intense with how you play the game. How did you deal with that failure? I mean, I know, you know, guys can talk to you and tell you, hey, man, you need to back off, or, you know, might get injured breaking a bat or taking it to a cooler or something like that. But really, how did you learn to deal with that? Because baseball is a lot of failure. And I think and the reason I'm bringing it up is a lot of kids struggle with that. You know, how did you get past that?
Man, I wish that I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self, you know, the cliches, hey, you know, this is me 10 years in the future. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to consistently play well. You're going to consistently, you know, do this. You're going to consistently hit some homers. You're going to consistently do this. And you know, my 18-year-old self believed that, because you don't. You get in these ruts and you're like, oh, this is never going to end. You know, especially when you're playing for your livelihood. You know, a lot of guys, including myself, we're not out there like, oh, this is going to be fun because I'm playing, you know, minor league baseball. No, I've always wanted to be a major league baseball player since I was a little kid. You know, so when I'm 0 for 15 with some strikeouts, it's like my world is ending. That's how you look at it when you're young, when you haven't had that many reps. A lot of guys do. But it just came for me with experience. Like I said, like I went years in a row, you know, some bad things, some unfortunate things happened in my career, injury wise, the roster move wise, stuff like that really sucked. And it was like, you know what, it almost got to a point where it was like, there's a lot of bigger things in baseball, and I'm just going to go out here and keep playing the way I do. And whatever happens, happens, because whatever I want to happen right now isn't happening. So just whatever happens, happens. And then some things just kind of came back and fell into place. And now I'm kind of at a spot where I still get mad, and I still get, you know, pissed off, that kind of thing. But I try to just keep it in a competitive manner and try to pick and choose. There are times to get mad, and then there's other times where it's like, hey, you know, you might want to watch out because your teammate right now is actually going through a really, really, really tough time. And you're just mad because you just struck out for your first time in the game. There's times where you really got to think about other people that you're around too.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point. And I don't think, you know, what I've said, in not just in baseball but in life, is that, you know, it's really hard to have perspective, especially when you just struck out. You know, as you said, thinking about other people and you know, setting that example. I mean, you know, you have, you know, thousands of people watching you. And your teammates, the guys you really value their opinion. So, you know, being able to navigate that is tough, and having that perspective when you're a young kid, when you're a young guy, on your own, and as you said, competing for your livelihood. It's tough, man. It's not very easy. So, going through that journey has been a challenge, and it seems to be, just judging from watching you from season to season, it's neat to see, how you progress, because you can tell it on the field. When I watch you now, you really do look like a pro player. You've always looked super talented. You've always looked super competitive, but man, you look polished when you go out there and you're doing your job. And it's really neat to see, considering, how long we've known you. What kind of advice would you give to kids that are coming up? I'm sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was going to tell a story.
Okay,
It kind of goes along
yeah.
the lines that we were just talking about. I think you guys will get a kick out of this. I don't know if I've told Jeff this or not. So I'm in full season A ball, 20 years old, maybe, and I'm playing for the Charleston River Dogs. And we go to Hickory, North Carolina, because we are going to play, that was the Rangers A-ball team at the time. And I got out, ground out, strike out, something. I get pissed, come into the dugout, go into the bathroom that's in the dugout. And this is like an old school stadium, like the bathroom's like right at the end of the bench, like you open it, whatever. Open it, walk in, and I slam this door behind me so hard because I'm mad. So I slam the door, and I'm in the bathroom and whatever, and I'm getting all mad. And I'm like, all right, it's time to go out. And I open the door, and I had slammed this old door shut so hard that it was jammed shut. And the third out of the inning comes up, and I'm like, now I'm having to ask people on the outside, hey, please, can you like open the door? And they're like laughing, and they're like, no, keep your ass in there, because I was making a scene.
Oh,
and
that's terrific.
yeah, so that will also humble you a little bit, is when you do some stupid stuff like that. Eventually, you start thinking about that next time you want to slam a door. You hear stories all the time of people that slam helmets and then it ricochets and hits a teammate, and then they never slam that helmet into the helmet rack again. So those help too.
Yeah,
That's
sure
an incredible story.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Jeff, you haven't heard that one, have you?
I didn't hear that. I've heard lots. I've been a beneficiary of a lot of great stories over the years, but that one.
I got another one too. Another Pro Bowl one that got pretty good was Lakeland, Florida. So I'm in High A, and we go play the Lakeland Tigers High A team, and whatever, strikeout or something. And I come into the dugout with my helmet, and those like kind of old school water fountains in dugouts that like the tray like is coming out of the wall.
Yeah.
Man, I just like took my helmet and I banged it on a tray, and I start to walk away. And as I'm walking away, I see in the corner of my eye water just is spouting out. And I didn't want to look back, but like everybody's like, oh, cave. And I didn't want to look back. I walked a few more steps before I looked back, and I turned around, and this thing is just spouting water out of this thing, like into the dugout, like
nothing like
steps.
Calling a plumber in the middle of a game.
Had to shut the game down for like a few minutes while somebody like turned off the water. Like oh yeah. So
did he keep you? Did you stay in the game after that?
Yeah, I think. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. I think I would have remembered getting yanked. Nah, it was more of just I had to pay for the new PVC pipes or whatever on the water fountain. But yeah,
that story might be better than the other story.
Yeah, man. I wish like if any of my teammates hear this, they're going to be dying laughing because they still bring it up. Because if you would like have seen these things happen, it was one of the you wouldn't forget. Like, there's some good ones. They're not as good of the stories as at Jeff's bachelor party when he tried to race somebody in a 40-yard dash.
60.
A 60-yard dash on Bourbon Street and tore his ACL.
And I won.
No, you did not. What do you mean? You went down.
I went down at the finish line.
Okay.
Yeah, I fell at the finish line, and I think that's where he finally caught me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but don't.
I think I have video on my phone of you.
Note to self: any of you guys out there ever wondering don't ever set up cones on Bourbon Street and run the 60, especially when you have not stretched.
And
And
was
it's
legit
35
40
degrees. Yeah, it's like 40
it
degrees
was cold.
outside.
It was cold for some reason. It was cold too, and he just thought it'd be a good idea. I thought a hammy coming off the bone was an option. I didn't see an ACL coming.
Yeah, well, that was my third ACL.
Good.
Same knee. Yeah, it's not one of my finer moments for sure. What a moron I was.
Hey, you know what?
For sure.
I got married, dude. I got married in a knee brace because of that.
Yes, you did.
That's
right.
tough to root for. That's tough to root for.
But no one
you
could
got to
see
postpone the wedding.
The knee brace
if
was
you're in a
under
knee brace.
the pants. No one knew. So
It was under his pants. You couldn't tell except for
I don't think anyone
extremely
knew.
large knee underneath.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Not good.
So Jeff, you've known Jake for a long time. What are some of your stories about Jake from his youth that's clean enough to talk about on here?
Well,
that might be a tough part.
Yeah, that could be difficult. No, I mean Jake was always forgetful. He always forgot stuff. I mean, we'd get to the ballpark and he wouldn't have his bats, or the next day he wouldn't have his glove, or he'd have the wrong belt on, or the wrong hat, or he'd have to borrow. He actually borrowed someone's jersey one time, and back in those days we had names on our back, and he was wearing a jersey that had someone else's last name on it. But he was constantly forgetting stuff. But when he was young, though, he just loved to play. He loved to play, and that's kind of one of the things that stuck out to me. A lot of these guys nowadays, and you can pick them out of a lineup. You can spend 2 weeks with the Canes, and I can pick out, all right, that guy loves to play. That guy, it's like his mom or his dad's making him be here, or that doesn't work. Like, this is a game, like you said, it's a failure game. Of course, I never played at the level you played. I mean, but I luckily played growing up my whole life and got to play some college ball and whatever. But it's such a high rate failure game, and you got to really want to be out there to keep pushing through, right? I mean, and I think, I don't know where we always kind of give a pat on the back to Jake because of his dad, but some of that's got to be internal, like an internal clock that he loves this thing, right? And obviously he does it for a living now, but when he was 15, he just loved to play. And I think that was something that really stuck out to me in his youth.
Hey, Jeff, do you remember it's funny saying that, because I remember one time in particular where I didn't want to play. When I just went to East Cobb with the older team.
That's a great story. That's a great story. So
yeah.
So the way that story goes, and I guess I'm contradicting myself, but I bet you if you
this was the only time.
Yeah, but if you could go back, I mean, your dad basically made you get on a plane.
Yeah.
And come back to Georgia. So Jake's playing up, and I'll try to make this a short-winded story to paint this picture. But we're playing at East Cobb, and back in those days, there's no Lake Point. East Cobb was where everybody played, and we're playing the ABD Bulldogs, which is now CBA, California Baseball Academy. The guy that ran ABD back in those days, he passed away about 5 years ago. But anyways, he had Christian Yelich. We were talking about that. He probably had 5 big leaguers on the field that night. Well, we went 8-0 that week, and I don't think we allowed 5 runs the whole week. We were set up. We had so much pitching rested. We started a kid named DeAndre Smelter that night, and he was a big football prospect as well. He was a Aflac perfect game All-American. He was up to 95 that night, and they threw a kid named Peter Tago that was up to 95 that night as well. But anyways, we were not supposed to beat ABD Bulldogs. They had, like I said, 5, 6 All-Americans on the field. I think 5 big leaguers on the field that night. And we were relatively unknown at the time. But our guys, you couldn't tell our guys that. We had them beat. They tied it up in like the 7th inning, I believe. And then we went into that extra inning thing where you load the bases up, that international tiebreaker, which we have never been in that. And we ended up losing on a ball that was off the wall that we hit. and we didn't tag up.
I'm gonna tell that story. I'm gonna tell that story after this
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and that's
That's one of my
younger
favorite.
days
That's one of
coaching.
my favorite Jeff coaching story. And I won't say any names, but like, oh yeah, that was a good one.
So they load the bases up, and we had Christian Yelich is up, and he hits a deep fly ball. We were playing back, and Jake's playing right field. It actually was hit to Jake. Well, Jake knew, and there was one out, so they load the bases up, one out. And this is a 16-year-old kid playing up on a 17-year-old team. Back then, it was a big deal. So we're playing deep, balls hit deep. Jake knows there's no play at home. He has the mindset. There's not a lot of 16-year-old kids that are going to think this way. He hauls off and throws the ball to third. The runner was a bigger, heavy-set guy, and he nails him for out 2. Then we get a punch out, and we only allowed 1 run. I mean, think about it. I mean, a lot of kids are not going to throw the ball to third. But he never hesitated once. A lot of guys are going to get the ball, and they're going to go to the plate. They think that they got to play at the plate or whatever, and he went to third with it. And, I think a lot of that has to do with – I certainly didn't teach him that. But then the next inning, we get a punch out, and then we didn't tag up on a play, and we end. But then we're eliminated. That's the first round. And so then the next week starts 16, which is his age group. It's the age he should play. And he went home for a day, and he was going to come back. Well, then I get a call that he don't want to come back. But we had been on the road for a while, and but I just told his dad, I was like, listen, man, if you can do anything to get this guy back here, because I really think we have a legitimate chance to win this 16-year-old World Wood Bat National Championship this week. And if Jake's not here, there's just no way it's going to happen. Anyways, Brian literally threw him on a plane the next day, and I picked him up at the airport. He was pissed. He didn't want to be there. But we did win that national championship that week. That was the first perfect game national championship.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the first perfect game national championship that the Canes ever won. And if he wouldn't have come back, there's no way it would have happened.
Me and Maples shared MVP of that. Remember?
That's
Dylan
right.
Maples was through. He was mowing everybody down.
Yeah, well, you threw the first round against Tri-State Arsenal and punched out Mike Trout several times.
Oh God.
Crazy times. Yeah, it's crazy. Right. You can't make this stuff up. This is like these things really happen. Christian Yelich, Mike. It's wild.
A few names there. Just a few names. So Jake,
let me tell
us your story.
From my point of view, the Jeff story. So we're in that game. It's a crazy game.
Thousands of people.
Were we home or away? We had to have been home.
I guess
because they scored, and then we had a chance to tie. So they scored that 1 run that you were just telling us where I threw it to third. We come up to bat. There is somebody on second base. One of my teammates is on second base.
No, so here's the story. Bottom of the 7th or top of the 7th, we could have got the go-ahead run on this play.
Right.
They were the home team, but we didn't. Go ahead.
So one of my teammates is on second base, and another one of my teammates is at the dish.
Chad
Pender's at the dish. And he hits – there's no outs. He hits an absolute scud. The fences on this field were 15 feet high. They were high fence the whole way around. Chad hits a ball that's either going to hit the very top of the fence or it's going to be, way out. This ball is absolutely crushed. The person who was on second, not only did they not just get a little few steps off, this person had their foot on the second base bag waiting for the ball to get caught and to try to tag up and go to third. So the ball hits the top of the fence. They throw it in. Runner on a runner.
I'm having a hard time hearing this story.
Second and third, because Chad went to second. The guy on second didn't get to third. So whatever. It's still second and third. Right? It was still second and third.
He got to third. The point is he should have scored.
Right, but then
after go.
Yeah, but anyways, we ended up not scoring.
We ended up not scoring at all.
They rolled two.
The ball game was tied. Yeah.
So then we lose in dramatic fashion, the extra inning, extra player thing, all this stuff. And we go and we've been grinding all summer. You know, we're 16, 17-year-old kids, been grinding all summer. We're all best friends with each other. We're all like crying, you know, like this is crazy. Like, might not see some of these guys again. The person who was on second base is like crying. And Jeff comes out to the huddle and he just looks at everybody and he goes, I'm going to go make it good for the podcast. He goes, I'm just gonna go ahead and just say it like it is. Points right at the person who was on second base as he's crying and goes, "You're going to this university next year, and the head coach, I'm not saying names, so I don't know who, the head coach is not gonna put up with this, and you're gonna get cut from the team immediately if you ever tag up on a ball like that ever again and cost the team a game." And the dude was just devastated. And like, that was Jeff's, like, that was his team speech after the last game of that summer.
I could have handled that a little differently.
But I always tell people I liked how like straight up Jeff was. But like that one in particular, man, he was rough. He just let us have it. I mean, but it was rightfully so. Like, it was bad baseball. But it was you know, it was a mistake. It was a mistake.
That it was, you know.
Yeah.
38 years old. How old was I then? I guess 27, 26.
You were my age.
Yeah. I look back at some of the stuff I did back in those days, and it's not good.
I know that kind of made it seem like Jeff's a bad coach, but he's really not.
No.
Oh, no. It's a story. It's true. I mean,
I did always appreciate how straight up Jeff was, though. I mean, you know, he would tell people exactly how it was, and I like that. I still think that that's a big thing, because there's a lot of time, and I know politics are different in pro ball, but sometimes you don't get told straight up, you know, some stuff from, you know, whatever it is, whoever it is, offices, front offices, stuff like that. So I've always appreciated, like, whenever there's coaches, when they can, and if they have control over it, then just be as straight up as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jake, what are you doing now? I mean, you're sitting around like everybody else. I know you're a high energy guy. How the heck are you managing this?
So, for a very bad situation, I'm doing okay. I got my family here with me. So I got my fiance and my daughter here with me. I still have the apartment that I had when I was in spring training. I'm in Fort Myers still. It's a nice little apartment. I have a field that I can go to. Me and another teammate that stayed down here as well. We just stayed. So we have a field that we go to. So it's only a small group, only a couple guys, and we can run around. We can throw to each other. Every once in a while, there's a coach who comes out and can throw to us. So I'm being able to hit on the field, run around, do some stuff in a safe way. Sometimes it's just me in the cages by myself, you know, stuff like that. Working out with all the bands, and, you know, that's the tough part. I mean, weight rooms and stuff are really out of the question. So, like, just, right. You know, trying to run, stay explosive, bands, push-ups, you know, squats, like just kind of stuff like that, getting out on the field, doing some stuff in the sun. You know, and then whenever my buddies like leave the field, whenever we're hitting together, like my daughter comes out and stuff and runs around too. So I mean, we're okay. The grocery stores down here aren't that bad, you know what I mean? But we're just basically waiting around, waiting to hear what's going to happen. You know, hopefully this thing takes a turn for the best, and they can roll out maybe some dates for us, so we know like what the season might look like, or getting ready for the season might look like. But that's, I mean, I know there's a lot of people in way worse situations than me right now. So, I mean, it sucks for sure that I don't get to play baseball, but there's a lot of people who can't do, you know, just their everyday work that's keeping them afloat. And I really feel for a lot of people right now. So I'm doing okay.
Good. And you're right there. You know, it's hard for us, even as coaches, to keep that in perspective, because we miss our players. You know, we miss our guys. We miss watching baseball. And that's kind of how this was all born, was, you know, we want to make sure, you know, we give guys like you an outlet and be able to, you know, spread your influence and be able to talk about, you know, about your life and what you got going on, and really be able to affect other players. Because, you know, there's a lot of kids, you know, throughout the country that really admire you, and You know, I see a lot of kids, even the 7x7, wearing, you know, cave jerseys and things like that. And, you know, notice the following that you're picking up, you know, from your time in pro ball, and it's neat to see. And, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, you can really help those kids. So, you know, we've got a bunch of kids sitting around now, you know, Kane's kids, high school kids, you know, Jeff and I both coach at a high school. You know, they need to stay safe. They don't really have as much perspective as you have. You know, what kind of advice would you give them? What could you tell younger guys? What would you give to them now?
Yeah, well, like, you know, right now, you know, in particular, like in this particular situation, like if you really, you know, if you love the game, like if this is something that's really, really important to you and you want to keep going, you gotta be creative right now. You gotta find ways to stay active. You gotta find ways to keep your mind mentally active. Think baseball, you know, watch baseball. You know, YouTube's out there. You could MLB. You can YouTube any game from 2017. I think now. I don't know if they've stopped that or whatever, but there's so many highlights that you could watch. There's a lot of stuff you could do. You could get in the front yard. You could hit wiffle balls. You could throw into a net. You could hit off a tee. You could spend quality time with a parent if you have them available to help. You could spend quality time with a brother or sister if you have available to help people in your household, stuff like that. You know, this is a weird time, but it's especially a weird time for baseball because, you know, baseball is an afterthought right now with whatever is going on. So, you know, do whatever you can to stay active and stay sharp, man. That's all. I mean, I'm talking to other Major League Baseball players, my buddies, my teammates, and like some of them don't even have a way that they can get onto a field like I have here. So they, you know, there's Major League Baseball players out there that have nothing that they can do besides maybe just go out in a yard and like hit some wiffle balls off the side of a house. And that's
crazy.
That's real. So like, for the kids out there right now, you know, for the high school kids and, you know, that really, you know, understand everything that's happening and really do like baseball, want to continue to play baseball and keep playing baseball well, just know that you're not alone. Do everything you can to keep mentally and physically sharp, but stay safe. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
everybody's in the same boat, and you're young, and it won't go away that quick.
Yeah, that, you know what, it's, again, you know, the neat thing is hearing your perspective on things, because it's awesome to see and it's awesome to hear. You know, being from the 757, you represent us very, very well. We really appreciate it. You know, some personal stuff. You're talking about your wife, or your fiance, excuse me, and your daughter. How old's your daughter? And tell us about your fiance a little bit, because she's got a neat little story.
Yeah, they're awesome, man. So Sloan, my daughter, is gonna be 3 in June, and then my fiance. Right now, we're scheduled to get married in November. But from what I'm hearing about some possibilities with the season and stuff like that, I'm hoping that we're gonna have to push that back, because that means we might be in World Series.
Yeah, right.
Which is crazy to think about. But she, no, her name is Sage, and she went to University of Tampa, and she played soccer in Tampa, at Tampa. She was an All-American, really good soccer player. She started playing some football when she got out of college. And that's where I met her, and she played for a few years there. She was an MVP. She still is a really good athlete. She's awesome, you know, with everything, baseball, lifestyle, that kind of thing. Great mom. So she definitely helps with the tough schedule, big time.
How are they doing during all of this? I mean, I know that you guys, you know, you're in a great spot there. You know, how is the family doing with all of this? You guys doing all right?
Good. Yeah. I mean, it's me and Sloan, my daughter, are getting to spend a lot of time together right now that normally we wouldn't. You know, last year, I mean, you know, Sloan was 2 in June, so she's at a really fun age. And I was only really getting to see her like once every few weeks for a couple of days at a time. And that was so tough, especially after spending all off season with her and getting a routine. Like, I'm the one who gets her up, you know, because, you know, mom can sleep while I'm home, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so now it's cool because we're still in that routine. it's weird to say, but like when baseball is what you do, like, yeah, I would prefer to be getting my daughter up in the morning, eating with her and then going to the field and playing baseball. If I could have it in a perfect world. But right now I don't have baseball, but I get a chance to be around her a lot. So that's cool. So trying to make the best of it for sure.
Absolutely. So I think we're kind of near the end of our time. Jeff, you got anything else to say?
I want to ask,
Jake?
I want to ask Jeff. I just saw, what's going on in the high schools? They just announced that. Like, I mean, that had to be coming for sure, though, right? I just saw it was just announced a couple of days or yesterday, or.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess officially the governor said that school was canceled, so that means, I guess, the season's over. It's been tough for sure.
I thought it happened a while ago. I guess it was just not in Virginia.
It wasn't official because I think some of us were holding out hope that maybe you could give this thing a month, and then let's see where we're at, and then maybe we play a shortened season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you got 3 seniors on our team. I know Rob's got some talented seniors on his Greenbrier Christian team. We actually are in the same division. Rob, we tried to like pull off a fast one that day and play each other that day. And then that was the day we got canceled. But yeah, it's tough, man. We're around it every single day, and then it's just taken away from you. It's difficult to deal with, but like you said, you got to try to stay active and stay positive. And as hard as it may be, you got to push through.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you're losing some guys, Rob?
Yeah, we had a couple of we have a senior shortstop that's going to William Mary. We got a guy that's outfielder, really talented outfielder, going to junior college. So yeah, we're just like anything else. You just feel bad for those guys because they work so hard for the 4 years, and we got in one game. I mean, we got a game in on Thursday, and then we were trying to the guys that we were supposed to play on Friday had canceled like a couple days ahead. So we called Jeff, or Jeff texted me trying to get a game, and we're trying to get one more in, and neither one of us could. So it's just as you said, it's a unique situation, and yeah, you certainly feel bad for those guys, but again, perspective of there's people that are a lot worse off than we are, man, and you just feel for those people, and try to do the best you can. Try not to expose yourself and be a carrier, and social distancing and isolating and things like that, the unfun stuff. But it's what you got to do, and baseball teaches you that. Take care of your teammates, and as you mentioned in the beginning, do the right thing. Play the game the right way. Do what you're supposed to do. I know Jeff. Jeff would go play in a parking lot right now if he could. We're the same.
He'd probably tear his ACL, but he would.
I would tear my ACL if I was running. If I was running in the parking lot. But,
So, Jake, hopefully we'll be able to touch back up with you here, maybe before spring training starts up. When our summer training, whatever that might be. But we really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate your time, but we really appreciate you. You've been a great representative of the Canes, guys that we want our guys to be like. So, whenever we talk about, who's a Cane and who's the type of guy that represents us, your name is one of the first one that come up every time. And it's not because you're a big leaguer. It's because you're a big league person. And we really appreciate you. Appreciate everything you've done, the foundation you helped lay, Jeff tagging the young kid and bringing him along. But you've really made us proud, and we really appreciate everything you've done, man.
No, man, thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is really cool. I had a lot of fun.
This might lead into something for you, man.
I'm trying. They say it's the conversation muscle is a real thing. They say you get out, you talk to people more, you get better at it. So
absolutely,
I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate both of you guys. Looking forward to doing it again for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for coming on for sure, and it's been awesome watching you grow up.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
All right, guys, take it easy. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you couldn't tell, Jake is kind of a stud, so give him a good follow on social media at JakeCave8. If you enjoyed this episode, Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, review, and share. Give us a follow on social media at CaneCast Show. And you can reach out to me on all social channels at Rob Younce, or email me directly at robyounce@gmail.com. I welcome your feedback as we look to improve the show every single episode. Do me a favor, stay safe, keep washing your hands, and be sure to live life like a 3-1 counts.